At some point on a summer afternoon, usually around 2 p.m., they disappear. One moment your yard is alive. Cardinals arguing at the feeder. Chickadees moving through the branches. Robins walking through the damp grass, pulling insects from the lawn as if the whole backyard belongs to them. And then, almost all at once, everything stops. No wind, no birdsong, no wing beats. The feeder is empty. The birdbath is still. The yard that was full of movement an hour ago now looks like it has been drained of life by the sun. You stand at the window with a glass of ice water, looking out at the empty heat, and the explanation seems obvious. It is too hot. The birds must have flown somewhere cooler, deeper into the woods, down to a lake, somewhere shaded, somewhere far away from your yard. That is what most people assume, but it is wrong. The truth is much more specific, much more dangerous, and far stranger than most people realize. Birds already run hot. Their normal body temperature sits between 104 and 108 degrees Fahrenheit. For a bird that weighs barely more than a few coins, taking off in 100-degree heat is not a casual decision. Flight is violent work. The chest muscles generate enormous heat. And in the middle of a summer afternoon, when the air itself is already pressing close to the bird's own internal temperature, that extra heat has almost nowhere to go. So they do not simply fly away. They do not vanish. They are still there. Right now, in the silence of that empty-looking yard, the birds around your house are fighting a hidden thermodynamic war that most people never knew existed. Welcome back to Backyard Bird Mind. Subscribe before you leave, because what you are about to learn happens in ordinary backyards every summer, completely invisible to most people, and it will change the way you look at a hot afternoon forever. Today we are going into the stillness, into the shade, into the strange survival systems birds use when the sun turns your yard into a furnace. Because once you understand what is happening behind that silence, a summer afternoon will never look empty again. Number 1. Why birds cannot simply sweat it out. Humans are lucky. When we overheat, we sweat. Sweat evaporates from our skin and carries heat away with it. It is one of the most effective cooling systems in the natural world, and we barely think about it. Birds do not have that option. They do not sweat. There are no sweat glands hidden under those feathers, no slow release of moisture across the skin, no easy way to let excess heat escape from the surface of the body. So on a day when the temperature climbs toward 100 degrees Fahrenheit, the birds in your yard face a problem that is brutally simple and brutally urgent. How do you cool a body that cannot sweat? If you were willing to step outside into the heat and walk toward the darkest corner of the thickest tree in your yard, you might find part of the answer. Look deep inside the shadow of an evergreen or beneath a dense shrub, and you may see a mourning dove, a jay, or even an owl sitting almost completely still. Its eyes may be partly closed, its body low and heavy, its beak slightly open, and if you watch closely enough, you will notice something that looks wrong. The bird's throat is moving, not slowly, not the way a mammal pants on a hot day. It is vibrating. This is called gular fluttering. The bird is rapidly oscillating the muscles of the throat and upper esophagus, sometimes dozens of times per second. That motion pushes air across the moist surfaces inside the mouth and throat, forcing moisture to evaporate. Evaporation removes heat. In that moment, the bird has turned its own mouth and throat into a living cooling system. It is not singing. It is not gasping in distress. It is running an emergency evaporative radiator inside its own head, trying to keep its core temperature from crossing the line where heat stress becomes organ damage. On the worst afternoons of summer, that tiny vibrating throat is the difference between a bird that survives until evening and one that does not. Number 2. The birdbath is not what you think it is. Now look at the birdbath. On the hottest afternoons, you may see starlings, robins, sparrows, or doves standing in the shallow water. Not drinking, not bathing, not doing anything that seems to have a purpose. They simply stand there, motionless. It looks almost accidental, like a bird that forgot what it came for. But look at the legs. Bird legs are not covered in feathers. They are thin, bare, and packed with blood vessels, sitting close to the surface. In winter, birds restrict blood flow to their legs to conserve heat. In extreme summer heat, that same system runs in reverse. Warm blood is pumped down into the exposed legs. The legs act as radiators. When the feet are standing in water, heat leaves the blood faster than it would in open air. The cooled blood then circulates back into the body. So the bird is not simply soaking its feet. It is cooling its entire circulatory system. It is using its own bare legs as a biological heat exchanger and the bird bath as a liquid cooling loop. To you, it looks like a bird standing in water. To the bird, it is precision engineering. Number 3. The ceasefire nobody planned. Heat changes more than physiology. It changes behavior in ways that are genuinely strange to watch. In spring and early summer, you know how territorial backyard birds can be. A cardinal chases other birds from the feeder. A mockingbird dive bombs anything that moves too close to its nest. Blue jays bully smaller birds away from food with an efficiency that looks almost calculated. Backyard birds are not peaceful neighbors by nature. But at 2 p.m. on a day when the temperature is approaching 104 degrees Fahrenheit, the rules begin to break down. Go look at the one bird bath that is still in shade. You may see a cardinal, a blue jay, a sparrow, a robin, and even a chipmunk gathered around the same small patch of water, close enough that their feathers almost touch. No chasing, no threat calls, no wing displays, no sudden attacks. Species that would not normally tolerate each other within 10 feet are standing together in silence. Not because they have become friends, because fighting is too expensive. Every burst of aggression costs energy. Every wing beat generates heat. Every chase pushes the body closer to a dangerous thermal limit that on the hottest afternoons, there is no margin left to cross. In that moment, the law of territory is suspended by the law of heat. Your bird bath becomes something extraordinary. For the hottest hours of the afternoon, it becomes a neutral zone in the backyard ecosystem. A temporary ceasefire created not by diplomacy, but by physics. Stillness becomes the only strategy that makes sense. Number 4. The bird that looks like it is dying. Now look at the hottest, most exposed patch of bare dirt in your yard, the part with no shade, no grass, no shelter of any kind. There you may see a blue jay, a grackle, or even a crow lying flat on the ground. Its wings are spread in a strange, broken-looking position, its feathers fluffed and twisted outward, its tail pressed into the dirt, its eyes half-closed, its beak open. It does not move. The first time most people see this, they think the same thing. That bird is dying. Do not rush toward it. There is a very good chance the bird is not dying at all. It is sunning. And sunning is one of the most misunderstood behaviors in the entire backyard bird world. Over the course of a summer, feathers accumulate parasites. Mites, feather lice, and other tiny organisms hide deep in the plumage, feeding on the structures that a bird depends on for flight and insulation. These are not minor inconveniences. A heavily parasitized bird is a compromised bird, so some birds do something that looks, from a distance, like collapse. They expose themselves to the sun on purpose. They spread their wings, open the feathers, press themselves into hot ground, and let direct sunlight reach the places parasites normally hide. The surface temperature of bare soil in full sun can climb far above the air temperature. Add ultraviolet radiation, and the bird has turned its own body into hostile territory for the organisms living on it. To a human watching from a window, it looks like suffering. To the bird, it is maintenance. And sometimes the strategy becomes stranger still. Some birds will deliberately position themselves near ant nests and allow the ants to move through their feathers. Disturbed ants release formic acid. Birds appear to use those chemical secretions as a form of natural pest control, letting the ants do work that no beak could reach. Heat, ultraviolet light, acid, stillness. To us, it looks like the end of something. To the bird, it may be medicine. Number 5. The birds that ride the heat into the sky. While all of this is happening in the shrubs and at the bird bath and on the hot ground, look up. The lower sky may appear completely empty. No clouds, no visible movement, just a pale dome of burning air above the neighborhood. But higher up, you may see dark shapes circling without effort. A hawk, a vulture, swifts cutting arcs through the upper air. They are not escaping the heat. They are using it. When the sun bakes your lawn, your driveway, and especially your dark roof, those surfaces heat the air directly above them. That warm air expands, becomes lighter than the cooler air around it, and rises. This rising column of warm air is called a thermal. You cannot see it. You cannot feel it from where you are standing, but birds can feel it from half a mile away. Large, soaring birds open their wings and step into that invisible column. Without a single wing beat, they are carried upward, sometimes hundreds or thousands of feet above the neighborhood, and the higher they rise, the cooler the air becomes. At around 5,000 feet, the temperature can be 10 to 15 degrees Celsius cooler than the ground baking below. So, while the birds in the shrubs are surviving by going still, and the birds at the birdbath are cooling blood through their bare legs, the birds above your roof are doing something more elegant than either. They are riding the heat itself into cooler air. The same sun that makes your yard unbearable creates the lift that carries them above it, without spending energy, without panting, without standing in water. While you sit inside with the air conditioning running, there may be a quiet refuge forming directly above your house. A cooler layer of air, invisible from the ground, where birds circle almost effortlessly over the burning suburbs below. They did not need a lake. They did not need a distant forest. They only needed physics. And then, around 5:30 or 6, the sun drops lower. Shadows stretch across the grass. The birdbath cools. The air softens. And from somewhere deep inside the shrubs, you hear the first call. A cardinal returns to the feeder. A robin steps out from under the bushes. A jay that spent part of the afternoon pressed against hot dirt appears on a branch, carefully working through its feathers. High above, the thermals weaken, and the soaring birds drift slowly lower. The yard comes back to life, but it was never dead. That is the part worth sitting with. For the entire afternoon, your yard looked empty, still, abandoned. But that stillness was not absence, it was concealment. Inside the deepest shade, birds were vibrating their throats to pull heat from their bodies. At the birdbath, they were running cooled blood through bare legs back into a body that had nowhere else to send the heat. On the hot ground, some were using the same sun that threatened them to kill the parasites living in their feathers. Above your roof, others were riding invisible columns of warm air into a cooler layer of sky. They did not leave. They moved into a part of their lives you had never been taught to see. These animals, some weighing only a few grams, are not simply hiding from summer. They are negotiating with it, with shade, with water, with blood flow, with ants, with rising air, with the physics of heat itself. So the next time the summer afternoon goes quiet, do not look at your yard and think nothing is happening. Look again. That empty feeder, that motionless birdbath, that patch of stillness beneath the shrubs. None of it is absence. It is a hidden survival system, running at full capacity, in plain sight. Your backyard is not dead at 2 p.m. It is a quiet fortress, and inside it the birds are doing what they have always done, surviving the impossible in ways most of us never stop to notice. Tell me in the comments, have you ever seen a bird lying with its wings spread in the sun, looking almost dead, or a bird standing quietly in a birdbath on a scorching afternoon? I want to hear what you have seen in your own yard. I read everyone, and I will see you in the next one.